Yeah.
I'll mute.
In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit, one God, Amen. Illumine our hearts, O Master, who lovest mankind with the pure light of thy divine knowledge, and open the eyes of our mind to the understanding of thy gospel teachings. Implant in us also the fear of thy blessed commandments, that trampling down all carnal desires, we may enter upon a spiritual manner of living, both thinking and doing such things as are well pleasing unto thee. For thou art our sanctification and illumination, and unto thee we ascribe glory. To the Father, and to the Son, and to the Holy Spirit, now and ever, and unto ages of ages. Amen.
Amen.
Welcome to our second Catechism class, Orthodoxy 101. I appreciate everybody's presence and participation. Today, I'm going to talk about two things: tradition and the Bible. So we're going, in order with the book, but today I'm going to focus on two things: tradition, or what we call in Arabic at-taqlid, or at-taslim, and we'll talk about it also. And the second thing, the Bible, al-Kitab al-Muqaddas. Okay. Before I start talking, I do want to play I think it's like a 3-minute video. It's it's a 3 minute out of a movie, came out in 1971. It's called well, what do I? I'll let me share it, and then so can I share the screen? Let's see. Oops. This. Oh, 1 second. Share screen. Thank you. All right, and it's. I don't know if you've seen or have heard of this movie. It's called Fiddler on the Roof. Can you everybody see my screen? And like I'm not gonna play this whole 7 minutes and 35 seconds. I am just going, it's like the first 3 or 4 minutes I think of it. All right, ready? Here we go. Let me see if I make sure my sound is fine.
And how do we keep our balance? That I can tell you in one word. Tradition! Because of our traditions, we've kept our balance for many, many years. Here in Anatevka, we have traditions for everything. How to sleep, how to eat, how to work, how to wear clothes. For instance, we always keep our heads covered and always wear a little prayer shawl. This shows our constant devotion to God. You may ask, how did this tradition get started? I'll tell you. I don't know. But it's a tradition. And because of our traditions, every one of us knows who he is and what God expects him to do.
Actually, that's at least what I wanted to show. Um, so, like I said, today I am going to talk about two things: the tradition and Bible. And a lot of time we think tradition, that is something just how we light the candle, or we talk a lot of times about tradition with definitely a very, very small t. But it's actually the whole Orthodox faith, the whole Christian faith is based on tradition with a big T, and then that's what we're gonna discuss and talk about today in this part, the tradition. Let me just first pull this, go like this, go like this, and yes. So the word tradition, what is the word tradition actually means? Let me just change because I can't see the screen very well. All right. What we mean by tradition and what tradition actually means is that which is passed on and given over from one another. That's how what we refer to tradition. يعني in Arabic, like I said, بالعربي نحن بنقول التقليد. But if we're gonna translate the word taqlid, it's basically kind of like an imitation. But it's actually more than just imitation بالعربي. It's better, to use the word, or it's actually to refer to tradition, تسليم ما تسلمناه. Okay. ما تسلمناه وما سنسلمه basically يعني اللي خدناه من قبل واللي راح نعطيه لبعدين. Um,
عادات بتدفع عادات.
So it's عادات. Yes, it's more than this, and that's why we're gonna talk about this. إنه ما قصد بس هو العادة. هلا بنشوف إن at the end of the day, it's, and I can just say it from, it's the whole life, our whole life in Christ, everything that we do, regardless, the way we believe, even the way, even the Bible itself, we're gonna talk about. إنه حتى البايبل itself هو part of tradition. So ما بس, it's not only العادات. It's like, well, how we, how we cross ourselves, or how, well, نحن, we I don't know, we put flowers around an icon, or we decorate the nash, the beer, or something. It's way more than, than this, and we'll see.
طقوس.
You'll see at the end of the day, it's all the above. It's all the above, but there are, anyway, little by little. Okay, so I will, mainly, of course, I'm gonna, talk in English, but, some keywords that, of course, I'm gonna just, say in Arabic, just to make sure that everybody, understands. So tradition, that which is passed on and given over from one another. Okay. Um, Tradition is the ongoing life of God's people. Like I said, it is not just like part of what we do like every day, just by like how we, come to church. It's literally our whole life. Everything that we do in the church, everything that you think of, in the church, from everything, you'll see, I'm going to list them at the end. It is part of what's called tradition. That's something that we received from the people before us. And the people before us received it from the people before them, and so and so. And that's what, God willing, we're going to hand over, if I can say, to the people who come after us, and the people who come after us will hand it over to the people who come after them too. The tradition of the Old Testament is fulfilled, completed, and transcended with Jesus Christ, the Messiah, and later by the life of his church. So, Sahih, of course, we have the Old Testament and the New Testament, and we have basically, there is the church, we say it's from creation. From literally the day God created, this is what basically the church is established. And with it, of course, now, but with when Christ came, it's basically, this is when, the central point of us, because the incarnation of Christ is the central point that defined everything around the life of the church. And if it defined the life of the church, that means it's all about tradition. This is what it, now, by knowing Christ, it's basically, this is where, this is now like, this is our tradition. So, so the central written part of this tradition is the New Testament writings. A lot of things that we want, we know about the tradition, it's taken from the New Testament writings, but also it expands even to more than this, not just the writings of the it's just not limited to what it's written. It's just not just what, the rules and the laws or what we read only in the gospel. By the way, the tradition of the New Testament is also called the apostolic tradition. The disciples and apostles of Christ handed us the tradition of the church. The central written part of this tradition is the New Testament writings. The Gospels and epistles of the New Testament are the main written source and inspiration of all that developed in later ages. Okay, so yes, like I said, church is basically since creation, but the the central point, the center part of our life in our tradition is basically based on the Gospels, the four Gospels in the New Testaments. Well, the New Testament in general. And what's the New Testament? We'll see more in details later. But basically, it's the Gospel writings and the epistles, and of course, the Revelation at the end. Um, the Holy Tradition is not limited to what is written. It is not merely a body of literature. It's, on the contrary, the very life and experience of the entire church inspired by the Holy Spirit. That's why we don't limit it, like I said in the beginning, we don't limit it to just, well, practice, al-adat, like the practices that we do, or some, rituals that we do. It's just everything. And again, when I say everything, you'll see everything. Like we talk about music, we talk about architecture, we talk about doctrines, we talk about canons, we talk about all of this is part of the tradition of a taqlid in the church, بالكنيسة. Um, some traditions are just temporal uh, and temporary things, human customs and traditions of no eternal and everlasting value. So some of the adat, some of those practices that we do, they're in the end of the day, they're not going to decide, if we're going to go to heaven or no, if we're going to be saved or no. They're good and nothing wrong with them, and I'll give an example or two about these things. But it's not like, God forbid, if we don't do them or 1 year we skip them or something, that means we made a big, somehow our salvation is jeopardized. So some traditions are just temporal and temporary things, human customs and traditions of no eternal and everlasting value. They are not sinful or wrong. And I'll come, actually, I don't want to, one second. Um, they are not sinful or wrong, but on the contrary, they may be very positive and very helpful to the life of the church, as long as they are not taken to be what they are not. We'll give you many, many examples. Lighting a candle. When we come to church, we'll light a candle. Or, even our practice on Holy Friday, like, a lot of people like to go under the beer, under, the nash, and it's beautiful practice in a way. It's like telling us like death is just it's not the end, it's just sort of passing through death to actually to life eternal, the hope of Christ, a resurrected Christ, to live with Christ. So like these things are actually beautiful to do, but they're not like, God forbid, if somehow we don't do them, somehow, or for whatever year I couldn't come to church because of it, or the priest somehow for whatever reason didn't do it, or it didn't happen, somehow for us, like our whole life in Christ is ruined. And I give this example because back in my previous job when working at the Archdiocese, my office job was part of my office job was scanning a lot of letters and the documents, uh, that we have. Basically, we just have all these files and we try to digitalize them and and make them available on the computer instead of just have millions of papers everywhere. And one of the letters that I'm just trying to put together so I can scan it and like find the order of it. It was in the 80s, I think, yeah, late 80s. It's from a parishioner. I don't even remember whichever church. Anyway, it's not important. But he basically writes a letter to Metropolitan Philip, God rest his soul, complaining about the new priest. And his complaint about the new priest is basically on the past Holy Friday, him and his son were not able to carry the epitaphium, the nash, the beer. Why? Because the new priest, said that, well, it's a practice that the clergy should hold it, and some kind of a pietistic practice that end up people holding it. So this priest, young, I don't want to say foolish, but at least young priest who thought like he wants to go with a practice exactly word by word. So I guess he told the people he is going to carry it with the clergy. He's not going to let the people do it. So this particular person with his son, the father writes the letter to the metropolitan complaining about this priest, that he did not allow the people to carry it, especially him and his son, that this is the only day, and bluntly he says that in his letter, that he comes to church and basically practice his Christianity. And the fact that the priest, it's a letter that goes like 3 or 4 pages long. And basically he says the story, he writes the story for like in a paragraph or two, and then after he just like, what kind of priest is this? What kind of education you teach these priests in the seminary? You complain, people always complain that the teens, children don't come to church. Why would they come to church if with people like this, priests like this, breaking the tradition of the church, breaking these practices, and all of this and all of this? And he's like saying, my son is never going to go back to church anymore. I am not going to go back to church. And I'm reading this letter. I was like, Lord have mercy. I mean, yes, probably the priest should have allowed the people. It's not, what's the big deal of letting the people hold the nash, the beer, but not to the point the reaction of the person becomes so like he like somehow his whole faith was broken, as if now he's doubting the faith, or something totally wrong, that he's not going to practice his Christianity anymore just because he was not able to hold like a piece of wood once a year, and he's doing one time coming to church for like maybe 30 seconds, and this is it for you. This is your whole faith, faith is based on this. So, well, usually any letter sent to the archdiocese, usually you'll have a reply, another letter that it's, the reply of the metropolitan or whoever, the letter is addressed to. Well, this letter did not have a reply. So probably they read it and it was just like, what can you do with this? Like maybe a phone call was made to the priest to somehow like reason with the person. But, to think about this kind of practice, this is what we talk about, like a tradition, like a very small tradition with a very small t, but that we should not let it, we should, or like I said here, as long as this tradition is not taken to be what it is not. Okay, that it's nice to carry the beard, like where Christ basically we're we envision like he's laying down on on this on this piece of wood. But it's not like this is our faith, that it's somehow it's against our faith if we don't carry it. um, Thus, it is very important to make the distinction between traditions which are merely earthly and human, and which pertains to the heavenly and eternal kingdom of God. It is also important. It is also important to recognize that there are also things in the church which not only do not belong to the holy tradition, but which are not even to be counted among its positive human traditions. These things which are just sinful and wrong are brought into the life of the church from the evil world. And that's basically how Father Hopko actually, like, he literally calls it that, you're bringing it, these traditions are like very superstitious, are very like, in a way, yeah, I don't know, somehow as if like somebody's doing magic, or, that's how bad. And I'll give you one example. These deviations and errors which creep into the life of the church stand under the judgment and condemnation of the authentic and genuine holy tradition, with capital T, which comes from God. And I'll give you an example of these like wrong, like just bluntly wrong traditions. Growing up in my home parish in Lebanon, on Holy Friday, actually, what used to happen when they do the procession, whenever they do the procession, they had this weird thing where each family will actually make a cross, a huge cross filled with roses, decorated with flowers and all of this. And in the middle of the cross, they put the image of a deceased person from the family. And if they have, it's just some like weird, very weird, this tradition. Again, it's like we're talking a cross, like, the cross that usually the priest carries on Holy Thursday. And this kind of like, and even bigger in a way, because now it becomes like a competition. Oh, family, so and so family, did it, I don't know, 10 feet long with what? Oh, we have to do it 12 feet long. And oh, they spent, I don't know, $100 on the flowers. Well, we better, spend 200 because, so they would make these crosses and put in the middle of the cross, where the two bars basically meet, the picture of the deceased person. The priest, before, the old priest, had no, whatever. He basically never wanted to get involved in any of this. It wasn't like he didn't care much, if I can say. And they would process with everybody, And then the problem becomes like, who wants to be in the front line? And who's has to who has to like push, and like my cross should be in the front, and you tell the people like, where do you get this from? Well, this is the tradition of Anfe. My hometown is called Anfe. It's our tradition, it's the tradition. And it's like, no, that is such a wrong thing that the priest, the new priest that they've had in my hometown, had to like literally spend almost a whole year preparing for the people, like not to let them do this. And it took a couple of years because people still show up with these like big crosses, insisted that they need to carry it, because or else it just, that's not how they express their faith. Or this is like, how can we express our faith without having these crosses? But you look at it and see, what kind of message you're trying, like, how did you get this? What are you trying to say by this? At the end of the day, even when we look at the crucifixion and the burial of Christ, we look at them from the eye of resurrection. Even the hymns that, you, God willing, you'll hear on Holy Thursday and Holy Friday, 90% of them end with something in the hope of resurrection, looking forward for the resurrection of Christ. So all of these, that's why we have to be very careful what we call tradition, with, of course, with the small t, that it just where it will take us. What are we trying to learn from this? We know when we cross ourselves, it's nowhere written in the Bible to like how to cross ourselves. You know what I mean? The three fingers and what, and all of these, how we light the candle, all of these things, they're not written somewhere, but there's a good lesson behind them. There's nothing wrong with them, making the sign of the cross, that we want God to be in our mind, to be in our bosom, in our inside of us, keep our lungs okay, and then just the fact that we have the sign of the cross, the light in front of the candle, in front of the front of an icon, that the light of Christ is shown onto, there's good lessons that we learn from this. What are we going to learn by holding a cross just full of flowers for whatever, and then competing with other families, and on top of this, sticking the picture of the deceased person in the middle of it? What, he or she now became Christ? Or somehow like, oh, they also were somehow crucified like Christ? No, no one was crucified. And I can dare to say, no death is like the death of Christ, regardless how dramatic it is. No death is like more like dramatic or drastic than crucifixion of Christ, especially that he's God, the sinless one. And look what he, regardless, again, whatever the death is. So these are the things that we try to always like point out. We just have to be careful not to be so much wrapped around like those small traditions that we forget the main tradition, which is the life in the church, that we basically uh, uh, you know we basically see that it's not just those small practices, but actually the Bible, it's one of the first, most important thing in the tradition of the church. So the Bible actually holds the first place in the holy tradition, and we'll see why is it, it is the Bible. And we don't see, somehow people will say, why isn't it the Bible, then the tradition? It's actually no, it's just the tradition, the life of the church, that at the end, part of it, and a big or the main part of it is the Bible that we received. And then we'll see why we say this. Okay, so the Bible holds the first place in the Holy Tradition. And then next, in the in the tradition, it's the doctrines, what we believe, who Jesus is, who the Holy Spirit is, who the Virgin Mary is, who the angels are, how why we say, we venerate the cross, we do not worship the cross, all this, like the rules and the doctrines, يعني العقيدة العقائد, what we believe in, اللي بنؤمن فيهم. Of course, then we have the liturgical life and its prayers, يعني, the church services, all these prayers that we do, the church councils, those meetings that they were handed to us, or that we, happened through history, especially the first 9 centuries. The canons, those rules that we were given by the church, do this and don't do this. And we have, in this case, if you have this, you deal with it, that, in this. And on top of this, the canon, also what we believe. The creed that we have, and we have a whole session on the creed, Dustur al-Iman, I believe in one God, أؤمن بإله واحد. We see it's even in those canons that we're handed basically what we believe in. The life of the saints, iconography, and we learned a great deal from Khoury, Aaron Kemet, especially with the ladies session that we had a week and a half ago, March 30th, about iconography and how it is, why we do things the way we do them and we don't do them in a different way. Liturgical music, why is it a specific kind of music that we use? The architecture, how the buildings are, all of these, are the tradition, not just when we say tuqus or adat, or rituals or practices, those ones like, oh, we have to put flowers in front of this, or we have to have I don't know, whatever it is, like, oh, women need to cover their head when they come to church, or well, in the baptism we have to bless the cross, or somehow if we don't get this cross blessed at the baptism, like something wrong or something bad is going to happen to the child, or something, so, or like a few weeks ago I had a baptism, and God bless the family. They wanted to give the cross to the baby, and the mother was trying to put the cross, and one of the people in the pews, I mean, actually, she got up and says, "Oh, you cannot put it. You cannot put it. It should be the godfather and the godmother." So she thought that the mother was like, "Okay, I hand it to the godfather," and then the godfather tried to put it, and she's like, "No, no, 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 no! Both godfather and godmother, each person should hold a side of the cross and put it together." And you can tell the mother's like, "Okay, I don't want to do something, God forbid, will jinx my child or something." I was like standing there like, okay, I mean, I'm just, what do you get? It's not a time, to like, no. But she was like, "That's the custom. That's what we should do." And it's like, okay, it's nice. Maybe, I mean, I would say it's nice, like how both of them are putting it, but not to make it at a point like where, oh, it has to be, like this way or else, like, God forbid, God is so limited that he's gonna, if not both the godfather and the godmother put it together, somehow the child, now his baptism is it's not accepted anymore, or it's a fake baptism, you know what I mean? So, but when we look, actually, when we say tradition, which is passed on and given over from one another, it's actually not just these things, but actually everything from our faith, what we believe, who do we think God is, who we think Christ is, the Holy Spirit, the everything. It's our life. Our tradition is our just life in Christ, life in the church, everything we call. Then we have, but we have like those, like, again, but we do have these priorities. We would never put, and I give always, like, this example about the beard, the na'ash. Carrying the na'ash is more important than making the sign of the cross, you know, or it's more important than fasting, or it's more important than prayers. No, 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 no. We have to be very careful. They're good things to do, but they're not as important as, almsgiving, being humble, being loving, all of these things. That what is the point of like, well, I'd like to, we have to do it a certain way in a certain, a certain thing in a certain way when I don't have a loving heart, or I don't pray, or I don't, fast, or I don't do. So what's the point of it now? It's actually nothing more than a ritual, nothing just like what's the word? Like I'm just, it's like a magical thing, It just somehow it's like I'm gonna get a voodoo or something, that if I don't do this or you do that, it's not, worry definitely more about what, how we pray, how do we act, how we love, and then and we worry about like who we believe in and all of these. So there are priorities, there are like actually order when it comes even to this tradition. But my main point, in telling you about the tradition, it is not just what is, what these, rituals that we do. It's even more important than this. That's why when we hand over or we give over to the second person, we're not gonna just teach them, well, we have the practice, at St. George now, we you have to, be on my deathbed, like I hope no one like on, on his or her deathbed, well, you tell their children, well, I need to make sure that you continue decorating the nash after, I pass away, because somebody has to do it. Yeah, it's beautiful. Yes, God willing, we hope somebody, always keep doing this, and hopefully we would never, God forbid, have, no one, somehow like no one decorating the nash. But it cannot take, I can't just be on my deathbed saying this and not say, well, make sure you go to church, make sure you keep, the faith about Christ, make sure you still preach the same faith that we received, also preach the same thing, and not just like stop and get stuck on these little tradition with a small t. Okay, so this is what I have on tradition. I, if you because I talked a lot, I will stop, listen to if you guys have any questions about, the tradition, and then we can continue with the Bible. Okay, if we have something that I said like didn't make sense, or something like, like nope, that's totally wrong, or like I never thought about it this way, so we can discuss it. Yes, Miss Ayub. Yes, Miss Rima.
Okay.
Yes,
So
Adla.
two related to that. I had three, but you actually answered one very well already
Mm,
and completely clear. Just the first quick question is the holy tradition, uppercase H, uppercase T,
mhm.
which is the Bible. Is it the Bible in its entirety, or is the holy tradition in reference to the Old Testament only? And the new is the apostolic tradition.
So both, it's the holy tradition with like, well, even the Bible is part of the holy tradition. At the end of the day,
Right.
the holy tradition as a whole, it's the Bible as a whole, and the main part of this Bible is the New Testament,
Okay.
without disregarding, of course, the Old Testament. Never. But because when we talk about the Bible, you'll see what I mean by this. So we have the Bible is like the core of, the holy tradition, and then everything else that we talked about, doctrines, architecture, liturgical music, liturgical life, the prayers, the services, and all of this, and then coming, going down the list, making the sign of the cross, lighting a candle, carrying the na'ash, always I keep, going back to, practices that other churches do, that we probably not aware of, that somehow they develop, and there's nothing whatsoever wrong with that, So when we say holy tradition, a capital H, capital T, this is everything. The core of it is the Bible. Even the core of the core is the New Testament, and we'll see why the New Testament, especially the four Gospels. Okay, so it's like we're going now from a circle to like the core of it, to the core to the next one, the next, But capital H, capital T is everything in the church.
Okay. So the next question, if I may, relates to page 23, first full paragraph, which the second half I didn't quite understand. It says the church in its human form as an earthly institution is not immune to the sins of its unholy members. That part was not clear to me.
Sure.
Why would you be a member if you're not holy or wanting to strive to be?
Sure. And maybe this is a bit a harsh language in it, I would say. But the point is, it's the example that I gave you in my hometown growing up with the cross
Yes.
and all of this.
Yes.
It's just like people probably means well. And like I said, probably it's just a little bit harsh language what he uses, like unholy and stuff. But the point is, we cannot consider this as if it's something good. There's actually something wrong. I'll give you another example.
I agree.
We have churches that people actually wear black on Holy Friday, and what they do after church, they start going this like wailing thing. And if you tell them, it's like, it's the tradition, it's Christ's death, it's his funeral. And it'd be like, this is so wrong. It is, because when you're wailing like this, as if like you're saying, well, Christ died. And if Christ has died, that's it, he's done. Well, whatever we're doing is useless then. Our meaning here is useless. Everything we're doing is useless. So referring basically to those practices that we call them traditions. احنا بنقول عنهم هول تقاليد عادات, نسوان عم تصرخ وتويل, or be, or come, or even men will come like in black, leaving their beards, you know what I mean, like, oh, just for like, the whole week of Holy Week, they just like let it out, they don't, they just don't take care of their, beard. It's like, why did you do that? Well, it's a Holy Week, although in Arabic it's called Usbu' al-Alam, the week of suffering or pain. And it's such a wrong name. It's such a wrong name that we call it like this in Arabic. It's Holy Week. It's Holy and Great Week, period. That's how it, Usbu' al-Azim al-Muqaddas, the Holy and Great Week. But people like comes like, man, like leaving their beards, and it's, well, we're sad. Why are we sad? Oh, Christ died. It was like, okay, yes, but don't stop there. It's not like as if like, oh, we're mourning, and like, no. Even in the hymns on Holy Saturday, we say, the lamentations, we lament, but we hear even at the end of all these lamentations, even the word lamentation is not very, it's just not very accurate. But the point is, at the end of the day, the whole service of Holy Friday is actually resurrectional. We sing the same hymns that we sing on Sundays, we repeat them on Holy Friday in a way. So I think that's, well, not I think, I know that's what he's referring to. These practices that somehow like they're just wrong, that you cannot just call, well, because we've been doing that for the last 20, 30 years. Why? Because we're humans. We're humans. We're also, we fall into. So not everything the church somehow does in its members, and a lot of times individual members, somehow we can call it now it's part of the life of the church, and it's okay to practice them, and it's okay to keep them going and stuff. Okay, I mean, we have a lot of stuff. I'm giving you examples like 2 3, but I mean, the evil eye, they need to make sure that they have, in some of our churches, even our own church has the evil eye right in the top of the iconostasis and all of these, just because the mentality in the 50s and 60s, like it's all, this like again sorcery or something, but that's what he's referring in this.
Okay.
Now, Arlette had her hands up,
Sure.
and then after Arlette, I have a quick question.
Sure. تفضلي ستنا.
Go ahead, Arlette. You're on mute.
I'm trying to unmute. Thank
There you
you.
go.
So I'm trying to grasp all what, thank you, all what you have said, Abuna, and I understand like all of what we kind of like passed down from our parents to us, and like from our surrounding and our culture is a little T tradition. And I was trying to just kind of like think about it in my mind, and would like the big T tradition would be the apostolic succession that we had through the Bible, through all the saints, through all the apostles.
Sure. So when we, at the end of the day, we don't want to minimize tradition by just, well, we make ma'mul on Pascha. It's delicious. I
Right.
would never expect, I can't imagine Pascha without, having ma'mul. I just cannot, personally, I cannot, fathom this. But I can't just stop there and say, well, I didn't fast this whole, fast. I didn't even go to church on Pascha, and I didn't do any of this, and I'm still like mad at somebody in my family and do this. But like, we have to make ma'mul for holy Pascha because that's what we do. No, we're missing out the point at the end. So when we say holy tradition, it's basically our faith, what we believe even in, the way, again, like we see we believe in the God, the Holy Spirit, why our churches are designed the way they are designed, why the music we use. But there are, like I said, priorities, and there are like classifications of these things, as long as we don't stop at these very small ones without looking at those bigger ones.
Can I go? I
Absolutely.
have
Thank you.
a couple of comments. Abuna. The eye that you see in our church that always attracts my attention, it's not the evil eye, it's the all-seeing eye. It's a Masonic tradition. It's the same eye you see on the dollar bill. That's what
Yeah,
it is. But
yeah,
but I
yeah,
don't know what it's doing. And this is what always for 20
yeah.
years I've been going. I have no idea what it's doing in our church.
So I mean, not only our church. There are, again, I would say, if I'm not mistaken, I've seen it at least not less than 30 or 40 churches out of the probably 200
Really?
churches that I visited. It is not usually churches that built in the 50s, 60s. It just like, this is all like, because you look at the in the end of it, and this is just a side. I will stop. I will just say all these, like, you look at the architecture of churches around the country, 50 built in the 50s and 60s.
Yeah.
Look at the architecture of there. Not only our church, we're not just like somehow we only deviated or did something like, oh, it's not, it's a lot of churches. Um, Look at the structure, look at the iconostasis, at the icons on this wall of icons. Look at the priest, who came in the 50s and 60s, what they wear and how they, at least what they wear and how they look. 99% of priests who were in the 50s and 60s, came and, either became priests at these periods, clean shaved, always wearing the suit, the collar, always, never like the robes outside of this. Why? It was a time in these 40s, 50s, 60s. It was some kind of a rebellion, if I can say, on like rebellion against the old traditions. But not only this, it is the more reason is because they wanted to blend in this country. There was, don't forget, there was always like the Italians, the Asians, the Irish, all these, and then the Arabs. So they're trying to, like, especially Arabs and Greeks. Look at the Greeks and Arabs. If you look at priests in their 70s and 80s now, probably 1% of them that you might see with a beard like me, like even just like maintain. 99% clean shaved. 1% probably who would wear the robe, the black robe, outside of church, like on the street or going to visit or something. They're all like came like, and then it's funny. I can even show you, fathers and sons, both priests, just because they're from different generation. Even when they're together, one is clean shaved with a collar, wearing a suit, and the son is wearing his anderi, the black robe, with no collar, white shirt, and then just like a trimmed beard. I'm just, again, I don't want to go through. I mean, we can call this tradition. They're both traditions at the end, and it's not because I wear the black robe somehow. Oh, he's holier now than the guy who's wearing the suit, or oh, because he has a half-inch long clean shave, clean trimmed beard, somehow now he's holier, or by not doing this somehow we throw all our faith out. So by saying even this, going back to the all-seeing eye and all of this is all part of a tradition that basically came for specific reasons around this time. But we're not unique about it. I just gave the example because we all know about it, we all see it, but we're not unique. Definitely, it's Again, at least in the churches that I've seen, 40 to 50, and not counting Greek churches. Even some very few Russian churches, but mainly with Ethiopian and Greek churches that we see this kind of tradition that started. It's not wrong at the end. We can say, well, it's not Byzantine, fine, but is Byzantine is going to take me to heaven or no? It's what's Byzantine, yes, this is the tradition of the church. This is what the fathers, there's a reason why they gave us instructions how the icons should be. That's why we have instructions how we have the music should be. But it's not like this is the end of it. Like God forbid somehow, like now, because we're in our church and the iconography is not very Byzantine, somehow our prayers are not accepted, to God. God forbid, of course not, but these, we can call them traditions, but we cannot just say this is it, if it's not like this, or if it's not Byzantine, style, like we might see other icons, well, this is wrong and this is wrong. It's just, that's not the end of our faith. It's not what decides on our faith, with this. That doesn't mean it's an open field. We can do whatever. I'm going to show now Jesus with like muscles and 12 packs or something, or like blonde hair because somehow I liked how he looked, or something. No, there's a limit. There's something that we just don't cross, because if we cross it, we become like those people that Father Hapko is talking about and Rima mentioned, those unholy kind of like practice that we become. Walid, you said, do you have another thing? Because Salim has.
That's okay. I'll get back. I mean, I'll ask that some other time. That's okay.
Salim, unmute yourself, just please.
I follow that the Old Testament is part of the Bible, and that's included. But in terms of the traditions, you mentioned that the traditions include the traditions of the Old Testament. At the beginning of the church, Judaism has circumcision. There was a big fight at the time. What do we keep?
Peter and Paul.
Some Christians traditionalists wanted to keep it, and others said, no, this is a new beginning. And that went out, and many other things. So I think the way I see it, the tradition of the Orthodox, at least church, is really more, organic from the Orthodox church.
From the Christian church, but it's like, and I will answer your question when I talk about the Bible, because I will touch upon these things. And then I have no problem, we can discuss it more when after I'm done, okay? But you're absolutely right. In the end, I can just throw it now, just because I don't want to just feel like, okay, push it to later. Everything is fulfilled, at least when it comes to the tradition of the Bible itself. Everything was fulfilled with Christ. That's why he said, I came to what? To fulfill, not to abolish, right? So we have to look at it. We say about in the New Testament, and you gave a great example. Well, circumcision. Is anybody now, every convert has to be circumcised? It's just like, no. And there was a whole discussion about it. It's not about like the circumcision, the act, of it. It's more the spirit of it now. But like, well, baptism now is becoming the new circumcision. It's like now it's a little bit modified or fulfilled in Christ. And that's what I'm going to actually, anybody else has anything about the tradition? Because I do want to talk about the Bible. And then we can get a lot of these answers, and hopefully I can clarify some of these, questions or any thoughts that you have. Okay.
Father,
yes.
Does the division of the church has to do with each church has to specialize in its own tradition, like they change?
Absolutely. Absolutely. In the end of the day, because when we have those divisions in churches, that basically one group, if I can say, deviated on this tradition thing, deviated and started, if I can say, a new tradition that the other part of the church, the Christian church, kind of like did not agree with, or did not see it as a practice or as a tradition that is accepted. So even when we say, like, if it was with the Catholic Church, and then of course after with the Protestant churches, and then all kinds of other churches, we basically, they developed their own, if I can say, new tradition. And this is not against any, any group, or it just, it's well known. There's a fact. I mean, even yeah, at least with the Catholic Church, they say, we used to believe in this, but we reach a point that we think this is how what it is. We're gonna change this, and we changed it. The Orthodox, and that's why they were called Orthodox, because they never deviated from the main faith or from the Christian faith. That's why Orthodox is called like the straight way, or at least one of the meaning. That, the other church was like, okay, but we honestly don't see it this way anymore. We see it in this way. And we were like, we don't agree with this. And that's why there was, this schism. So they developed their own tradition, if I can say. And of course, from the Catholic Church, we had the Protestant developing their own church, their own tradition too, and picking and choosing what they count tradition and what they don't count tradition. Is that what you were asking, Zabia?
Yes, thank you. Like sometimes I compare, like when, like, okay, the Muslims people, they are divided to many sects, and they have Shia and Shia and many, but they still practice the same way. Like, I mean, I feel jealous.
Sure. Well, and I mean, technically, even, well, honestly, I'll go with this, for, this, I push for this. A lot of times, I mean, we cannot compare ourselves to Protestant and say, oh, well, I wish the Protestant can't, those denominations. Bye, Tina. God bless you. God bless you. God bless you. Somehow, like, we wish that we can practice like them, or they practice like us. I mean, I hope they believe, at least in, like, we're so far away from, each other. I think the worst, if I can say, the worst wound in the Christian church is the division between, Orthodox and Catholics. It's the, I think, worst wound. But we have serious, issues, and that can be. We talk about it. We'll have a session about it at some point, because we will talk about the history of the church, the schism, and why we have these differences, and why, in the end, like, why things cannot anyway. But we will leave this to definitely another time, because it will take, it's a very sensitive issue. But yes, I wish it. But even when you look at even the Catholic, I mean, they kind of have like a close mass. I mean, they call it mass, we call it divine liturgy, but they have a close prayers, and some of our old practices that we just changed in a way, the Catholics still remained, and they kept doing it. So it will be, yes, like you said, Islam, like, they still pray kind of the same way. They still, like, but there are differences even in their own prayer. There are still differences, and you can tell who's a Sunni and who's a Shiite, the way they pray, and the way they dress, and all of these ways, that at the end, because each one developed his own tradition, basically. Okay, like his own doctrinal, if that's the word, is that how, like, their tradition about the doctrines, what they believe in stuff, and of course their practices. Okay, let me go with the Bible, talk about the Bible, and then we can open it. Salim, you'll tell me if that's, if I get also expand on what you've asked, and then if anybody has another question, at least about what we see the Bible, what the Bible represent to us. Okay, I didn't do like a PowerPoint thing for it. It just, but but I'll just talk about it. So, Bible, the written record of God's revelation is the Bible. Okay, this is the written record of God's revelation. And it's not everything. Not everything that we have, what we know and what we believe in, what we do, somehow just came from the Bible. And that's why we say Bible is part of the tradition, part of what we received, like Arlette said, the apostolic succession, and like what we received from the apostles and from the disciples and from the people after us. And God willing, what we give to the people who come after us. Okay, so the written record of God's revelation is the Bible. And literally, Bible means what? The book, the books, al-kitab, al-kutub, literally Bible. It is also called, the Bible is also called Holy scriptures, holy scriptures. Scripture as a word simply means writings. Okay, so holy scriptures, when we say, are holy writings. We say, in Arabic, usually we say Al-Kitab al-Muqaddas, the holy, the book, or the book, the holy book, basically. Al-Kitab al-Muqaddas, okay? The Bible, all Bible, the whole book of Bible, was written by many different people over thousands of years, okay? It was not written just like, all of a sudden one person sat down year so-and-so and start writing all these pages. No, it was people wrote things, and then the church came by, I think, 2nd or 3rd century, when they said and collected all of these writings and put them in one book. So I think till the 3rd, I'm not very sure, I need to go back and check, but basically in the early church, where they sat down, got all of these books together as a church, and they gave us what we have, the Bible. But 5,000 before Christ and 6,000 before Christ, we have things been written, have been they've been written, basically, book after book, and then somehow they're out there, and the church collected them, okay, and put them all in one book. Okay, this is not up. It's not like somehow somebody started, okay, I'm gonna write a book called the Old Testament. It's actually never called the Old Testament, and we'll see in a second. It's not like somebody just wrote a book and then somebody else took this first book and it was just like, okay, let me write the second book now and attach it to the first book, 3,000 before, Christ. And then, here's now the book now with two, let's say a main book that has two books in it. Oh, let's get the third one, or a third person came in, wrote the third book, and then somehow was like, okay, now let's publish this book now with 3 books in it instead of 2. And no, they were just writings, that they were intended for specific people in specific areas, but the church collected them from all over the world, basically, if I can say, from all over the, this area where, especially in the Middle East, and they just put it together in book. They put them all together. Okay, it's not like now Dr. So-and-so met with Dr. So-and-so and Father so-and-so and wrote a book about chemistry or about theology or something like we do now. Okay, the languages of the book we talked about, we're not, in the end, mostly Greek, and in some books they were written in Aramaic. Mary asked. We know at least Matthew most likely was written in Aramaic, but also there are versions of it in Greek. So we assume that they were written in Aramaic. A lot of the stuff like John, Luke, the other ones we assume, and I think we had one session about with Deacon Nicola. We talked about these languages and stuff like this, that but and that's the point at the end of the day, that all these gospels and books, they were written in different, of course the Old Testament was written in Hebrew. Of course that was the language at the end of these people. And then after we had a translation, I think it's in 70 AD, I think, I'm not sure, when they basically, the whole Bible or the whole Old Testament was translated from Hebrew to Greek. And that's what's called the Septuagint, the 70. Why? Because 70 scholars got together and they translated the Hebrew Old Testament to the Old Testament in Greek, basically. Okay, so Bible was written by many different people over thousands of years. It is divided into 2 testaments or covenants. Testament, that's why we say in Arabic, Al-Ahd al-Qadim, Al-Ahd al-Jadid. But what's Ahd means? Testament, covenant, agreement, deal, right? So it's like 2 people, you do this for me, I do this for you. Literally, like a deal. The New Testament, the Old Testament and the New Testament are basically like well, lack of a better word, a business deal in a way, or like a deal between, people. And it's basically a deal or an agreement between, I like this kind of agreement, agreement, or contract. You can Nicola, mention, contract, but it's a deal, agreement, contract between God and his people. Here's what I do for you. Here's what I will do for you. Here's what you should do for me. Regardless who kept his word and who deviated, you know what I mean? Regardless who actually, fulfilled his, duties, who fulfilled his part of the contract, of the deal, of the agreement, and but that's what it's called. Okay. So definitely, when the Old Testament never called by itself Old Testament, somehow knowing that at some point, so many years after, we're gonna write the New Testament. No, after they put it together, which, like I said, I think a couple hundred years after, like when it was finalized. I will get this because I also want to know. Like when it was finalized and put together by the church, the Bible, they were like, okay, anything before Christ, we're gonna call it the Old Testament, Al-Ahd al-Qadim, the Old Covenant, and with Christ, we're gonna say the New Testament. Probably we should have called it or something I want to say modified, but the fulfilled testament, the New Testament, to call it, instead of like old and new, as if like, yeah, in the old one, we were going to charge you $2,000 for rent. With the new ones, actually, I don't know, 5,000, or not, something drastic. Like there's a huge change. It's not like this huge change more than, it's just like, it's a new look, it's a new fulfillment. If we say so, the New Testament, we can actually call it the fulfill, or the fulfilled testament, if I can say, the Old and the fulfilled testament, basically. Okay. So we said it is divided into two testaments, covenants, agreements, deals, contract, old and new. The Bible contains different kinds of writings, different kinds. They're not all the same kind of writing. What kind of writing? We have law, do this, don't do this. And if you do this, this is what's going to happen to you. And if you don't do this, you're going to lose this. So law. We have prophecy, prophecy. There will be somebody who's, or this going to happen after. We have books that it's all about prophecies. History, literally in the years, such year, Pharaoh did this and Moses did this. And then the next year, this happened. Just literally historical thing. Poetry, and it's a beautiful poetry. Some of the books, like, poetry, stories, like kind of like historical stories or stories. And then there's this, it's called, I had to look it up, aphorism. In the book, it says aphorism, APHORISM. In Arabic, I looked it up. It's aqwal ma'thura. What it means, like, I'll give you an example. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Like, so we have like proverbs and stuff, like, it's just basically like, proverbs, or like, what would be a good word? Hikam, what is hikam? Like, exactly. I mean, something like this, if you knock on water, it's not going to change anything, so basically, sayings that you're conveying a simple message to people by just saying. So it's like, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So it's like, don't put your nose in everything. It's a lesson, like, well, just don't mind your own business in this. Unless there's actually a problem, don't stir the pot. You know what I mean? Like when we say in English, don't stir the, stuff like this that we see. There are literally books that actually talk about, this kind of language. Pity observation, yeah, that's one way. There is, here, I'll tell you here, 1 second. Let's see what dictionary.com or aphorism definition, meaning. So yeah, so Google basically translated it to a pithy observation that contains a general truth, such as, and that's what if it ain't broke, don't fix it. That's Google translation. Merriam-Webster defines it as a concise statement of a principle. Okay, a concise statement of a principle. I like that that definition. But those are the example, like basically that I Where are, Abuna, any idea where are the original manuscripts written by the evangelist kept? Jerusalem, or we have in different places. And, let's talk about these at the end, okay? But they're in different places. We have some in Mount Sinai, we have some in Constantinople, in Istanbul, we have some in Jerusalem, some in Rome, some in France, some in London. It's just a lot of things were stolen, and in the under the umbrella of like big countries want to preserve things, and you know what I mean. So, but anyway, they're all over the world. A lot of these things, like at least pages of them, or So, so again, we said the Bible contains different kinds of writings: law, prophecy, history, poetry, stories, aphorism, prayers, letters, and symbolic visions, as we see in Revelation, at least in the book of Revelation, Ru'ya Yohanna. Okay, some like something that we have not seen yet, something we're gonna see dragons. It says we're gonna see, fire. We're gonna see water. All of these things. We're gonna see kings, and all these like basically symbolic visions. I'm going to talk a little bit now about the Old Testament. Old Testament. It begins with 5 books of the law. Okay, the first 5 books, they're called the books of the law, and they actually, there's another name of it. We don't need to. I mean, I'll mention it to you. It's a Greek word, Pentateuch, or actually it's a Hebrew, Pentateuch, P as in Pepsi, P as in Paul, EN, T as in Tom, ATEUCH, and literally means 5 books. Literally called, the 5 books basically. And they are Genesis, Takwin, Exodus, Khuruj, basically the first 5 books. If you have a Bible, just the first 5 books. So Genesis, Takwin, Exodus, Khuruj, Leviticus, Lawiyin, Numbers, A'dad, and Deuteronomy, At-Tathniya. Okay, so those are the 5 books. And they're actually, I don't know if you've heard the word Torah, and even in Arabic, we say Kitab al-Tawrat, the book of Torah. And it's a word that means law, the book of the law too. Okay, and that's what Tawrat, or Torah, Torah, T as in Tom, Torah, Torah, at-Tawrat, which means the law. It's the wording, in Hebrew. Okay. Also, I mean, they have a bunch of names. Those 5 books have, the first 5 books, they have multiple names. They're all they're also called the Book of Moses. They're called what? The books of Moses, since they are centered on the Exodus and the Mosaic laws. The Exodus basically from Egypt, when Moses took the people and escaped from Egypt and went back to, basically, Sinai, and, hoping to go back to Sinai. And then, of course, the Mosaic laws, the tablets, and all of these, they're centered. But also, they're also called the books of Moses because we're not sure, and we don't know for sure, but one of the traditions that we assume that actually Moses is the one who sat down and wrote all these 5 books and actually get started. We're not sure. There is a tradition that says that. That's why it was giving the book, it's called the Book of Moses. Not only because it's definitely centered. Those 5 books are definitely centered, centered about what Moses did. Especially the tablets, or the Exodus first, the escape, the new life of the Jewish people, and the Mosaic law, what they received from God, all these interaction between God and his people, Moses going to the temple, to the mountain, God, striking them with, with the snakes and all of these things, but also there is this kind of tradition that says that maybe Moses wrote them. Is it right? Does it matter? It does not matter to us if he wrote them or somebody else wrote them. It's what we're interested in is what these books are actually say. Okay. Okay, beside the first 5 books, beside those 5 books on the law basically, and the Exodus and this, there are the books of the history of Israel, books called the wisdom books, like the Psalms and the Proverbs, and the book of Job. So Psalms and Proverbs, يعني, Kitab al-Mazamir and Kitab al-Amthal. And the book of Job, Kitab Ayyub, Ayyub al-Siddiq, Job. That's why we say Sabrak ya Ayyub. In Arabic we say your patience, Job, because if anytime you get like frustrated that you need, you can, you just need patience. In Arabic we say Sabrak ya Ayyub, your patience, Job, because no one endured, no one had a bigger patience more than Job, even with everything that he had to go through, right? So, but it will be nice to start this trend in English. Your patience, Job. So, I mean, if you literally translate some of these things, people might look at you like, huh? What is this? Your patience. Like when we say Sim'an ma sami'a, Simon didn't hear. If you say this in English, like Simon did not hear what we said, he'd be like, huh? What does that even mean? In Arabic will make sense, just playing on words. But anyway, stuff like this. Um, by the way, I cannot tell you that I enjoy old sayings. I just love to like learn about old sayings. I not only learn about, like, learn to know them more, also learn what we mean, how they came to be. I love these things, and I get to like compare to some of the in English. I'll should say this. This is your break. This is like, now we're in a class and you get, your 2 minute, a 30-second break. I feel like in English, we don't have as highly like, um if I can say those like sayings, old sayings, that they're heavy like in Arabic. Although we have some in English. One of them, a couple of them, like I feel like there's poetry in them, although they're bad, but like
Richness, Abuna,
yeah, richness, rich. Yeah, it's just like you hear it in Arabic, you'd be like, woof. And then some in English. So hopefully, God willing, in the next 1,000 years, maybe in English, we'll start developing those like rich old saying, like stuff like this. Yeah, exactly, Sabi. I mean, a lot of times I feel like we translate them, but like a lot of times with my friends, American friends, I'd be like, well, in this situation, we would have said we would have said this in Arabic. Like one time, I told a priest wanted to write something about the father of another of a friend priest, that his father passed away. So I said, well, you should write that the what's البط بطة oh my god
Duck.
duck. Okay, so the ducky is always is a floater, or the baby of a duck is a floater. It's just فرخ البط عوام.
فرخ البط عوام.
So, yeah, if like if you say this in in English, oh, the baby of a duck is a floater, you'd be like, huh? But then it's basically like this son, without even, just came up like his father, without even any try to learn it. He's just like, because he's the son, or she's the daughter of her mother, just she came out doing things like her mother. It's the same as when the baby duck, you just throwing them in the water, they're just born in like a few hours, and they're just like, okay, floating. They didn't need to learn, like father, like, so like these things. So that's what we, aphorism, probably sometimes when we read them in English, it's like, okay, what it we actually means by these, in the proverbs and stuff. But that was your break. I don't know if it was related to what we were talking, but I thought just, something to we're almost done, believe me. So beside the 5 books, there are books of the history of Israel, books called the wisdom books, like the Psalms and Proverbs, and the book of Job. Books of the prophecies, which carry the name of the Old Testament prophets. Okay, and we know like Ezekiel, Isaiah, you name it, all of these, in the Old Testament. And here's a very important definition of what a prophet means. We always have this like kind of wrong understanding of what a prophet is. It's actually the main definition of a prophet is not actually just the one who foresees the future or tells about the future. It's actually, that's a secondary thing. So a prophet, not only we say nabi, it's not just like what well, in the next 500 years, this is what's going to happen, or this what this is a secondary role for the prophet. The prophet actually mainly is the one who speaks the word of God by direct divine inspiration. Again, the prophet is one who speaks the word of God by direct divine inspiration, and we see it a lot in the Old Testament. I'll talk about it in a second, Deacon. About I'm not going to go through details about these books, but in a second I will mention a few answer your question, Deacon. But where was I? Yeah. So prophets. Prophets are actually the ones who speak. Like when we have Daniel going to the king and proclaiming something, it's just like, well, God wants you to do this, this, this God, I just got this inspiration or whatever, here we call it, like, well, divine inspiration. Here's what you need to do. I am going to, to do this, or I'm going to tell people to do this. Not just, well, because in the end we have this understanding of like nabi, or or prophet is like always the one who foresees the future. In 50 years, we're going to have a volcano that erupt in this, or, what I mean? Maybe a prophet, we've had prophets saying, of course, like Isaiah, of course, saying a virgin is going to give birth to to Emmanuel and all of this. Yeah, I mean, this is definitely part of what they do, but also their main part is just like in that moment to speak this, to speak something, that is divinely inspired by God. Maybe, yes. Okay. Should I elaborate on this? I see some
No,
people.
that actually makes sense because I argue, Angela. I don't want to insert the question, so I'll wait till the end.
Deacon is taking a break now, and then he's just like want to,
I don't know. Somebody say.
Okay, so
Okay.
all right. So we at least we know now, like I would say a better distinction of what a prophet is, or actually the main road. I
Yes.
mean main role of a prophet. Okay. Um, Only secondarily does the word prophet means one who foretells the future. Okay. And of course, also, and now I'm going to not talk too much about it, but I will mention it. Also, we have in the Old Testament book that it's called apocryphal books. Apocryphal books. Secret or hidden basically means, but in Arabic, we call them doubted books. Like, it's just like, okay, what they say is like, we can live without it, but we still include it just because the early church included it. But also, I would tell you, one of them is Book of Solomon, like a bunch of prophecies, but the problem is I don't want to talk much about it because at the end of the day, we don't even have in the Orthodox Church in general, among like Greeks and Russians, and even we have question marks, and some believe, or some include books in the Old Testament and some don't include them, at least those doubted books. We can, one day we can I think it's not, it's not the time to like spend time and like, here are the books that the Greek church actually agrees and include in the Old Testament. Here's what the list of those doubted books that the Russian church actually put them all together in one book, or in the Greek church they kind of like divided them in 2 3 groups. What's more important for us, and as a whole in the Orthodox church we believe in, is we have a lot of the books that we agree on, just these what's called apocryphal books that we don't have a census, like a census on them. So, but they're not anyway. They're not gonna. In Arabic, we say "La rahi adnu, la rahi akhru." They're not gonna make any difference in what we need to know about Christ. It's more of a like some historical things that happened, um, or some sayings that at the end of the day we're not, I mean, it's like we can live with or without them. We need them or we don't need. I can give you can read more about it, but I think it's first, let's accustom ourselves to the stuff that we are unified, as an Orthodox church. Well, of course, the Protestant church, Catholic church and us, we kind of like, we have like we have some differences between us, I mean, the Greeks, Antiochians and Russians. The Catholic Church also kind of include these books, but some Some, they put, kind of like put them at the end, all together, one chapter or like one book. Protestant churches, they're like, nope, I mean, they take out a lot of the Old Testament anyway, it's just not like we can even consider them. But anyway, that it's a whole kind of conversation about these things. And actually, so that was for the Old Testament. New Testament, and here's Salim will start getting words, or answers of what you asked. The New Testament, Al-Ahd al-Jadid, the center of the New Testament is the four Gospels. So the center of Holy Tradition is the Bible. The center of the Bible is the four Gospels, and you'll see what I mean by this at the end. So the center of the New Testament is the four Gospels: Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. The authors, those four, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, they're called what? Evangelist, right? Evangelist. What does evangelist mean, at the end of the day? Evangelist, evangelion, the Greek word is evangelion. Injil, we say the Injil in Arabic. Evangelion, literally from two words. Okay, they're two words, literally means the, or good tidings, good news, or the glad tidings, you might also see it. In Arabic, literally, we can, instead of call it Injil, we can literally say Al-Khabar As-Sar. Al-Khabar As-Sar. Like the happy or the joyful news. Somebody said something? Wali, did you say?
No, I said that the good news.
Good news. The glad tidings, the glad news, that, that's basically, we call it Injil, but that's literally what it means. And of course, what is the good news?
Christ.
Bravo. His incarnation, his, death, his resurrection, all of his life. But the good news is now the incarnation of Christ, or the Son of God, the Word of God, being, in the shape now in the form of a man, of a human. Okay.
Also, Father, we refer to it al-Bushra as-Sarra.
Yeah, Bishara, but Khabar or Bishara, and that's why we say, Bashir, or Bishar, we call it Annunciation, Eid al-Bishara, Jamal, you had a question?
King James version of the Bible. I think it's very similar to ours and everybody's, right? It's King James where we go with. And
yeah.
Why was that King James?
I'm sorry, Jamil, what did you say, Dan?
King James version of the Bible.
Yes, sir.
Is what we follow most of the time.
In English, yes. That's kind of like it's like the official, if I can say, version in America, Protestant and now we have multiple versions and stuff, but King James is always like the one, like anytime they want to refer to, they want to go back like to see what the original English said, it is always going back to King James.
King James.
I start hearing also something called the original copy is the Van Dyke.
Yeah, people say this too.
Yeah.
In the Van Dyke, but like I think no one. Even with King James, they can still point out things to you like this is not actually a good translation or something. There's a lack, of like a faithful translation. Basically, but on the King James story, I worked in a pharmacy during my seminary, and actually my undergrad in seminary. I was working on the front desk of a pharmacy, and one of our customers is a Greek priest, very well known in the Greek archdiocese, even in Ethiopian. His name is Father George Dragas. He's from Boston. Well, he's Greek, but he lives in Boston. Priest for like 30-something years, 40 years maybe. Very well educated. Of course, he's from the old country. He came, I think, to the state in the 80s, I think. Anyway, the point, when he comes to the pharmacy, he comes wearing his black robe. Okay, and he has like kind of a nice beard, and so he came on a Friday. And why I remember it's a Friday, because we had a Jehovah's Witness a customer who would always comes and picks up her prescription and her family's mother or whoever family on Fridays. They have like that anyway. Every Friday she comes up. So one day she's there waiting for her medications, and Father George walks in. He picks up his medication. Him and I were talking because I know him, and he was actually my petrology teacher at the seminary. He became my petrology teacher, but anyway, I knew him from before. The point is, all I see is like this woman. She's from Haiti. Stands up, comes right toward us, and she looks at Father George and tells him, "Do you believe in Jesus?" And Father George, with his heavy Greek accent, he's like, "Of course I believe in Jesus. Of course." She's like, "Do you read the Bible?" The mistake that he made, he said, "Of course I read the Bible. I read actually the Bible in its original language." And she looks at him and she's like, "Well, I read it in the original language too." And he's like, "Oh, you read Greek?" And she's like, "What?" Like literally she's looking down, like as if like, "I'm here to teach you. I'm here to show you, what Christ is, just because you're wearing a weird robe," somehow she thought. And he's like, "Okay, you speak Greek?" And she's like, "What? No." And it was like, he's like, "Wow, this is not original. The original is at least the Greek, the language of the Gospels, at least what we, base now all our studies." And she's like, "No, I read the King James Version." So in her brain, that the Bible was not written until 1500 years later. 1500.
So who was King James?
You know who he was? He was a British king who commissioned the work. He needed
1400 years, whatever, the exact time. I don't know when he wrote it, but like he's at least 1400, 1500 years after Christ.
So what version is our Bible? The Arabic one. What version is our Bible, the Arabic?
But the point is like, see how like some people like, it just, God bless them. This is where they
live in a shell.
What is it? Oh, they live in a shell.
All jacuzzi witnesses do.
Exactly. So between the Van Dyke, King James, all these, they're good resources to go back and see what, at least in the beginning, how English, how they, translated things. But now we have versions in English, like, God help us. Just they watered it down, or they change words that they don't like on purpose. Just like, we don't like this word in Greek. We know what it means, but no, we cannot accept it here in this culture, in this, let's change it. Then they water it down, or they just change it. Anyway.
How do you spell the Van Dyke? Is it B or V? V for Victor?
V as in Victor. And Dyke is D-Y-K-E. V-A-N-D-Y-K-E.
Right.
Van Dyke. So we said the author, the New Testament, 4 Gospels, Evangelist, Al-Bishara, the Al-Khabar Sar, all these, the good tidings, the glad tidings, the good news, the glad news, all of these basically. Okay. After those 4 Gospels, we have the book of the Acts of the Apostles, right? We see the Acts, A'mal al-Rusul. Who wrote them? Who wrote the Acts of the Apostles? It's very clear for us. We know that for sure from the first page.
Peter.
St. Luke. No, St. Luke wrote it. St. Luke wrote the Acts.
St. Paul, and he was one of the biggest apostle who wrote the letters of the apostles.
The letters,
well,
but not the
Acts of the Apostles. I'm only speaking about the first book after, in order after the Gospels. We have the Acts of the Apostles, A'mal al-Rusul, and it was clearly written by St. Luke. St. Luke, the same St. Luke who wrote the 3rd Gospel, okay, the Gospel of Luke. We'll see now relate with St. Paul what he wrote, okay, and St. James and all of these, okay. So after the 4 Gospels, we have the Acts of the Apostles written by St. Luke. After the St. Luke, we have 14 letters, 14 letters or epistles written by St. Paul, different ones. There is one that actually we think that it's not written by St. Paul, the letter to the Hebrews, but it's not a conversation now to, but anyway, we contribute 14 of the epistles to St. Paul. All right. We have 3 epistles written by St. John, the evangelist, other than the gospel that he wrote, Gospel of John, that we, with Deacon Nicola, you guys spent almost, a long time, to study it and like to go through it. So he did not only write the Gospel of John, he wrote 3 letters. We see them at the end of the Bible, And of course, each letter was written for a specific kind of people to tell them some kind of a story, or to teach them some kind of a lesson. All right. Beside, of course, him writing the gospel for a lot of, for everybody, basically. So 14 letters of Paul, 3 epistles of St. John the Evangelist, 2 letters by Peter, our Peter, the big Peter, St. Peter, and 1 each to James and Judas. James, the brother of Christ, we call him the brother of the Lord, who became the first bishop of Jerusalem, who died by stoning, actually. Well, not only stoning, they threw him out of the temple. But James and Judas, but not Judas the Iscariot, the other Judas, okay? Not Judas, the one who betrayed Christ. There was another one, one of the 70 disciples and apostles that also wrote a letter, okay? And then at the end, we have the book of Revelation. Ru'ya Yohanna, we call it the Revelation book, Ru'ya Yohanna, which is also written by whom? By St. John the Evangelist. So technically, St. Paul wrote a lot of letters, but also second in order, we have St. John the Evangelist, who wrote a gospel, who wrote 3 letters, and who wrote the Revelation. The book of Revelations, it's on its own a whole, Bible study.
If you don't mind. So the Saint John who wrote the Ru'ya Yohanna is the same as Yohanna al-Habib.
Yes, of course. Of course. So, yes. So Yohanna al-Habib, the beloved John, we call, in the Gospels, he's the one who always refers to himself, the one who Jesus loved. Or, so he's the same as the evangelist. So we call him the evangelist, the theologian, and the beloved. He has those 3 titles. Okay? The theologian, Lehuti, we call him Yohanna Lehuti, the theologian. We call him John the evangelist, and of course, John the beloved. Okay? So, okay. For us, the Bible is the main written source of divine doctrine, since God himself inspired its writing by the Holy Spirit. Now I'm talking the Bible as a whole, Old and New. Okay, again, the Bible for us is the main written source of divine doctrine, since God himself inspired its writing by the Holy Spirit. But keep something in mind. All words are human. The Bible is the Word of God in written form because it contains not merely the thoughts and experiences of man, but the very self-revelation of God. Okay? So it is the self-revelation of God, but it's not sola scriptura as like some, it's as if like somehow God dictated that to us without like, through the experience and the tradition of the church was written. Okay? Exactly. So Islam believes that the Quran was somehow like, it's just somehow no one, when Muhammad, wrote it, he had no saying in this, nothing, it was just as if like, he was just like not moving his hand, not, doing anything. And somehow somebody's moving his hand and writing all of these things. We do not believe like this in the gospel, in the Bible. We believe that it was humans wrote it, but definitely with an inspiration of God. How? Through the way they lived their life, how they lived this life in Christ, or even before Christ incarnated this life with God. Okay, so that's why in a lot of accounts, when we read stories, especially in the New Testament, we will be like, okay, hold on a second. In one account, it says one angel, was in the grave with, when Christ was resurrected and the disciples came. And then another account, it says 2. Why is it 1? Is it 1 or is it 2? Like, why is it, why, who, it can't be just somehow sola scriptura, as how like, always, Protestant refer to. Somehow it's like from God, but then you have all these like, not want to say contradictions, but like, if it was really given, why would we need then 4 accounts? It's not like we have 4 versions of the Quran or multiple versions, even like saying kind of the same thing, but in different ways. Why is it, if it's like something that it's, given to us or like forced on us, why would God do this? Why would give it in 4 accounts, or actually multiple, but at the end of the day, the church kind of kept those 4. and just says those are the main four. So we believe that it's an inspiration. People wrote these, and in the end, we really need to, like I said this multiple times before, we also need to understand that each person, when he wrote any of the books in the Old Testament or in the New Testament, it was not in their mind thinking 2,000 years from now, there's going to be a Bible study, at St. George or at St. Demetrius or at St. so and so, that they're going to talk about this. So that's how I'm going to write. No, they all wrote these, wrote these letters and wrote these, books for the people, like intended people during their time to talk something about them. So that's why some, like if I'm writing a letter, like if I'm writing a letter to somebody in Australia, maybe I'm going to talk about where I live. I might not tell him I live in Catlett, Virginia. I mean, nowadays probably he'll, okay, let me go on Google and Google where Catholic, but they still had to like go on Google to like find Catholic, Virginia, because they're not gonna know at all. It's just say I live in Catholic, and they'll be like, huh? Where is? I mean, no one is gonna get. So, but if I'm writing a letter to somebody or I'm talking to somebody in Warrenton, Virginia, and I say, yeah, I live here in Catholic. Oh, of course. Oh, of course of course I know where Catholic. You don't need to tell me Catholic, Virginia, it's southern of Watertown, all of this. But if I'm talking to somebody, I don't know, in Australia, well, of course I'm gonna not only tell them, Catholic in Virginia, and it's actually Northern Virginia, and it's like Virginia is right next to Washington, D.C. So in my writings, if in my speech, I have to be specific, depending on the person I'm talking to, and to convey the best message, I have to use the best words to communicate with him or her. So, and that's how the Gospels are. We have sometimes like, we call them contradictions, or we might call them like, why this one will say one angel and one or two angels, or one person says, well, Christ, healed this person, in this area, but then we read in another gospel where he actually healed him in this area. Or like somebody says, yeah, he healed this person in Fairfax County, and then another gospel, well, he actually healed him in, I don't know what's in Fairfax County, Falls Church, maybe Falls Church in Fairfax. Well, I mean, whichever town, in Fairfax County, depending on the person, who you're talking to, the audience, so they can understand, what you're trying to convey. Anyway, I know we went. Um, are you planning to change town name to Orthodox instead of Catholic? Yeah, maybe we should. I mean, hey, we have a lot from the old country, right? We have Jerusalem, we have Bethlehem, we have all these, Mount Lebanon. That would be good. I wish. And then Zena, what did you say? Even in the icons, some have one and some have more angels. Yeah, of course. All to convey specific message to the specific people they're talking to. Okay, and that we have to keep that in mind. A couple of days ago, I was watching a clip of one of those late night shows, funny ones, or they think they're funny. They invited some Protestant pastor, and they literally like drilled him. Oh, the gospel says this and this. You say it's God gave you these things. And he's like, well, you need to understand, and no answer. And they're like, I'm sorry, it's STUPID. Like to invite, somehow people think this is Christianity. All he had to tell him, like, no, it is not something that it was sola scriptura, like God forced this book on us and we have to accept it. No, it's just people wrote it through divine inspiration, but they're still human who wrote it. And then, they wrote it for specific people, not like intending, like they didn't even know. They thought, even St. Paul thought that the second coming was going to happen in a year or two after Christ, like in his time, like after his conversion. Like, oh, it's just like before I die, the second coming was happening. They didn't know. It's not like they're intending, 2,000 years ago, there was a Protestant pastor we might talk about, so let's write this. And, so these things we have to keep in mind. The center of the Bible as the written word of God in human form, here's the point here, Salim, is the person of the living word of God in human form, Jesus Christ. The center of the Bible as the written word of God in human form is the person of the living word of God in a human form, Jesus Christ. To summarize all this, 3 words: the center of the Bible is who? Incarnated Jesus Christ, period. Everything, as Orthodox and as Christian Church, and at least we and the Catholic agree on this 100 billion percent, everything is interpreted in the Old Testament and the New Testament in the light of Christ. The light of Christ, either Christ in the Old Testament being the Word of God, that he's not incarnated in it yet. So, like when God says we created or we this, he's talking about the Trinity, everybody, all three. It's centered that we say that Christ created with God. Okay, so everything it's a very solid, teaching in our church. Everything is interpreted in the Old Testament and the New Testament, especially in the Old Testament, in the light of Christ. Since everything leads up to Christ and speaks about him. Okay, and how do we know also by this? And we confirm this, Luke 24:44. Luke 24:44, it says, he said to them, he, Christ, telling his disciples, this is what I told you while I was still with you. Everything must be fulfilled that is written about me, about Christ, in the law of Moses, the prophets, and the Psalms. Okay? So everything, when we say, oh, well, Moses saw the shadow of God. Yeah, he probably saw the word of God. We say, oh, this is the burning bush. Oh, well, it's Christ in it. That's why we have what's called, if you come to Orthros, if you come to Matins, you'll see these things. Every time we have what's called part that's called katavasiya, katafasiyat, hymns that we sing. Basically, they're canticles. They're called the 9 canticles. They're taken, so events that happen in the Old Testament, okay? And the church took them and saw where Christ in them, like the incarnated Christ. What do I mean by this? What happened in the Old Testament? Moses, what did Moses happen? What did he do when he left? When he escaped Egypt? He got to the Red Sea. Water. What should I do? He grabbed his cane or his whatever, his staff, and went like this, right? Went like this. What happened to the sea? Open. And then after they passed, what did he do? Went like this, horizontally, right? What does that represent?
The cross.
So we say in this hymn, like Moses did like this in the Old Testament and passed everybody from slavery to freedom. Well, the crucifixion of Christ, takes us from slavery and liberate us and takes us to the new life. Okay, we say, oh, Jonah in the belly, of the whale for 3 days. Okay. Oh, okay. What does that mean? How did the church see it?
Jesus in the tomb.
Exactly. Bravo. It's a prefiguration. It's a symbol of like learning that the Son of Man, when he comes, the Messiah, when he comes, he's gonna, be in in darkness, if I can say, in death for 3 days, and after the 3rd day, come out to the light. So everything we interpret at the end of the day, when we read the Psalms, David says, the Lord said to my Lord. Oh, well, hold on a second. David says, the Lord said to my Lord. So now we're talking about 2 lords. So as if like God is telling, we as church, we say, oh yeah, sure. Basically, David is saying, God told his son. God told the Messiah. So that's how we interpret these things. The church interprets everything in the end in the Old Testament in the eyes and based on Christ, especially in the Old Testament before he was incarnated. And of course, in the New Testament, well, he's among us. I mean, he was among people. Okay?
Well, Abuna, who prophesied the second coming? I mean, definitely not Jesus Christ.
Everybody, especially Christ. Yeah. Yes, but even Christ said that.
Jesus said that?
Yes. So Christ, well, they asked him, keep keep that thought on the epistle of Easter, Pascha, because there is a, we read the chapter of from the Acts of the Apostles, and the apostle says, when are you going to give the, you know, the glory back to Israel? Which basically, when is the second coming? Like he says, no one has to know, or no one will know when, you know, will come. But he's basically saying that there is time, you know, there is the second coming, but no one is going to know where the, you know, when it is. So even in Christ, and he always says, when I come, you know, when I come back, before I come back, I'm going to send you the Holy Spirit and all of this. Now I'm, you know, I'm going up to my Father. I will send you the Holy Spirit. Then when we come back and rule, you know, look at the Gospel of Matthew, the sheep and the goats. He's basically saying, when the Son of God comes back in glory, sitting on his you know, throne, he'll judge, you know, this and this, and you know. So basically, all of them, including Christ, who prophesied about the second coming.
Thank you.
Okay? And actually have the last.
رؤيا يوحنا talks a lot about it too.
Exactly. Exactly.
رؤيا يوحنا.
Yes, Revelation, of course, talking. I mean, the whole thing about Revelation is like how all these, you know, what's going to happen, how Christ is going to come, what we're going to see, the battle of Armageddon, and all of these things. But again, I don't dare to try to explain these to you, because I'll let these, you know, things, God willing, one day, a session with Father Damaskinos. And the last thing I have here to say, so like I said, everything is leads up to Christ and speaks about him. That's why on the altar table in the church, we only put the book of the four gospels and not the entire Bible, because everything in the Bible is fulfilled in Christ. That doesn't mean they're useless. The epistles of Paul are useless, or, you know, the book of Isaiah is useless, God forbid. No. But like in the church, at least on the altar table, we put the book that you see, you know, that Archdeacon Workine and Deacon Nicholas or myself, we read from, is basically that's the book of the four, basically the Gospels, just the four Gospels, not the epistles. There's another book that has the epistles of St. Paul or St. James or whatever, you know. But on the altar, we don't have a Bible. We don't put the whole Bible, the Old and New Testament. We read the Old Testament and the New Testament constantly, you know, the epistles, the Old Testaments and Vespers, right, and Holy Week, and all these like major feasts. But on the altar table, it's the gospel. It's the gospel of the four books of Gospels in one book. Okay.
Also, Father, our altar, that if you pay attention, they pay attention, it has four columns, and that's what you know, what it, you know, it,
yeah,
you know, it's to symbolize the four gospels that we have. That's what we stand for.
It's also not only the gospels, it's also the four sides of the world, like all that the word of God, God is encompassing all the world, north, south, east, and west, or you know, east and west. But also, you know, actually, our church is not consecrated. I learned that it's never been like consecrated, but in the consecration, actually, the table, before you put the covers right on the marble or whatever the surface you have, it's actually you have to put the four icons of the apostle, the evangelist, on each corner, and you basically put on the side to get them basically to glue them. You don't put glue, you actually put wax, hot wax, and you just get them, you know. But we don't, you know, anyway. But Zena, you had wanted to say something.
I had a question. Is the book of Revelation ever read in the church? No?
No.
Okay.
No. It is definitely included. And I think it's, well, it's not. I think you know, at the end of the day, to read it, it is not an easy one. The church still, you know, the church still made it part of the gospel, you know, of the Bible, but it's never read, and that's why it just, not a lot of priests, even, it's not like even we got a lot of, you know, time to learn more about it. It just it's not an easy book. It's not an easy book because a lot of figurative things, a lot of like we have to be careful, and we live in a world that sometimes we believe in like somehow right away it's like sorcery or magic and all like so it's not read in the church just so people like you need literally a deeper understanding of it. We don't want to just like throw say something and people like, oh, so you're telling me there's be like a white horse and stuff like it's just like, oh, all these like details, like sometimes we really need to understand. It's not an easy book to read. The church still included it. I think it will be nice one day to have, like Walid said, maybe at least an introduction to it in general, maybe God willing, maybe after Lent or after Pascha, we, at some point in the summer or something, we can have like a special guest, like what he called it. We can, call Father Damaskinos, who did, extensive studies. And like I said, his master's thesis on it and his PhD is on something include I'm pretty sure at least his master's is on um Revelation. Deacon.
Father,
That will be great, Abuna. I read it
Well,
several times, but I don't dare say I understand 1% of it.
well, believe me, I'm the same here. There's just like some of the stuff is like, okay, can I look at this interpretation and look at this, commentary, and okay, this is a bit too much. Okay, I believe, in the end of the day, it's not. I'm not going to change my faith because I'm going to doubt my faith because of what's written. But I just, Lord, accept my faith, basically. Deacon, sorry, I cut.
It's okay, Father. The question is in the Bible tells us we have to encourage people to read it because that brings blessings to them. So that's why I'm saying why, I know it's a tough subject, but why we not really introduce it or trying to teach the revelation or make it part of our Bible or and at least encourage people, because that's what very specific the Bible states. Blessed are those who reads it, and as many times as So whether
Sure.
you understand it or not, I think you should read it. It's a lot of information in there.
Yeah, it is in the it is part of the Bible. The church is in a way, and the church is not, we're not smarter than the church or like more intel or like no more. There is a reason why it doesn't include it in like the same way we read the epistles of St. Paul or the same way we read the Bible, the Gospels. There is specific reason. It's basically part of it. It is not very easy to like, it's all figurative. So it's not like don't kill or love another or love something. It's like, the dragon eating this or swallowing this. It's like all these like figurative, all these like figurative, things that you just have to be careful like to understand, yes, Amazon do have, and a lot of documentaries have been done on these. Eleni, I would, I won't mind if of course you want to watch them, definitely, but it will be very important to look at it from a Orthodox perspective, because a lot of times, you'll have Protestant, believing in some, Protestant. We have some Christian groups, they're selling tickets in some Zionist Christian group in, Palestine and in like some areas in like, occupied by Israel. They're basically, they call them, it's the Battle of Armageddon. They're selling tickets for people to watch it. How, one of my favorite words is the stupid word, but like how, stupid of this, but like because they look into it some literally and like to make money and all of these. So when when they talk about these in these documentaries, we have to be just a little bit careful. It's good to see, of course, it's better than nothing. But
interestingly, when I would watch it, like after we finished John with with Deacon, I would have my Bible, my Orthodox Bible, and I was just following just to see, are they going to go, word for word? And it was almost on point on some, at least on the ones I've watched so far.
Absolutely. And a lot, sometimes the Catholic Church, and does a lot of these documentaries, which is very, very close to what we do. It just we need just need to be careful because sometimes we might have groups who are just like
Right.
some
Um,
like Protestant or Zionist groups that
Actually, the Church of Oklahoma, where my cousin Deacon Ezra is really, really, I can forward to you his book on Revelation. I can forward it to you, Father. To listen to him on YouTube, he is very good. It's from an Orthodox point of view, Antiochian.
Sure, and we do have few in the country,
Yeah.
from Ethiopians or Greeks or Russians that written books about it. I'm sure you'll find multiple books. My concern is just make sure, yes, read it on your own. Yes, watch a documentary about it, but also refer to an Orthodox perspective on it. So for next time, God willing, I will look at because I think we went like we did go for 2 hours, but maybe just focus on one. I'll see what at the end in the next couple of days what we need to focus on how many, but probably we'll limit it to an hour and a half most. But if anybody else has any other questions about anything that we talked about tradition, that's why I don't want to hear anymore, or at least I don't like when people say any tradition that you hear, not like why do we do this, like in the in the video that I showed you. It's tradition. What is the tradition? Where did it come from? I don't know. Like, we don't want to hear this word, I don't know. Like, no, we're doing this because this is what it came to be. And that's what we're trying to learn. This, I don't know. Like, yeah, well, there are things that God didn't reveal to us. But like everything that we do in the church now, we have reasons for. It's not like we don't know. I mean, you tell me like, is there, I don't, something like, is God, what is God and stuff? We'll be like, yeah, I don't know about God. But like, why do we why do you need to carry a cross and have the picture of your deceased person in it and say, well, that's the tradition, why are you doing it? I don't know, but this is the tradition. No, that's wrong. Or even like, why do you light a candle? Why do you use incense? Well, I don't know, that's the tradition. No, there's meanings behind these things. Okay, the church not like arbitrarily just like started something. Anyway, yalla, what else? Anything?
Thank you, Abuna. Thank you, everyone.
Ahlan wa sahlan.
Good
Yalla.
night.
Good night. I'm just gonna say a short prayers and we'll, all right. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, of the Holy Spirit, one God, Amen. More honorable than the cherubim and more glorious beyond compare than the seraphim, thou who without corruption bearest God the Word and are truly Theotokos, we magnify thee. Through the prayers of our holy fathers and our mother, the Theotokos, have mercy on us and save us. Amen.
Amen.